welcome back to another episode of the Horsemen Pro Football Talk podcast. I'm Brad.
This is Zach.
Nothing.
So this is our week 3 recap. Man, what? Not having a preseason. I think we're week 3 into the preseason. This has been a crazy week. We're going to get started with everything, but I would like to add, out of the craziness, I would like to give Hefe the props that he had a really good week in the pick'em and he moved into first place.
Yeah, there's one game not a whole lot of people were taking, and I picked, I guess, kind of an upset, even though one team was winless and one team hasn't lost yet. But the Bears Falcons, I took the Bears in that game, and I think there was only 28% of us that had the Bears, so I think 1 or 2 upsets helped me this week.
Yeah, well, and keeping up with 2020, the Bears are 3-0.
Yeah, started 2 quarterbacks yesterday and still won the game, or played 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, 2020 is the year of shit I didn't see coming, and the Bears being 3-0 would be one of those. We'll get into that. So with there's with one game left, we have the Ravens and the Chiefs tonight as we're recording this. We have a 4-way tie for second place with Zach and yours truly. Willie on the west side and Ricky Entry. So I didn't look at who has what for tonight. This might be a make or break game.
Yeah, we can't. I tried to look. I couldn't see it.
Okay.
They have that hidden. But I don't know. It's toss up tonight, Baltimore, Kansas City. So
yeah, it'd be a good game. So, all right, let's move on. Let's get to the recap topics. So let's start with the Cowboys and the Seahawks. Guys, I got to tell you, I was so confused at the end of this. I wanted both these teams to lose. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to laugh or to cry each big play that was made in the last couple minutes. I normally enjoy football, but I had anxiety because I wanted both of them to do poorly. Zach, why couldn't they just tie? I think you're the one that said, well, they could tie. That's almost like a loss. Why couldn't just like the Bengals and the Eagles? I mean, a tie doesn't mean anything to either one of those teams. They're just going to drift into oblivion the rest of the season. I'd rather see a tie be the deciding factor for who does or doesn't win the division, or even better, who does or doesn't get into the playoffs, especially either one of these two teams. Unfortunately, it is what it is. The Cowboys blew it again. How about them Cowboys?
I love it.
But according to their fans, they just need a few weeks to pull it all together with their new coach. Probably about week 8, I think, is when we can stop using that excuse. They'll probably get there. I
They're a 500 team. They're 500 every single year. So
it's a good thing their division sucks ass. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, and the Seahawks, God damn it, they moved to 3-0 and sit atop of what is arguably the best division in football right now. They look like they may have a Super Bowl run on their slate. I can't stand it. And Pete Carroll still looks like a bank robber wearing an old man mask.
Yeah, the Seahawks are looking impressive, especially Russell Wilson. He's playing at an MVP caliber level right now. I've been advocating for Josh Allen last week, saying he was leading the MVP, but after Russell Wilson in this game, I'd have to give the nod to Russell. He had 315 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He set the record for the most passing touchdowns in a team's first 3 games. And he also becomes the 5th player in league history to throw for at least 4 touchdowns in 3 straight games, joining Peyton Manning, Dan Marino, Patrick Mahomes, and Drew Brees, which is very good company to have.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and as good as the Seahawks offense looks, I agree. Right now, you have to say Russell Wilson's the MVP. I mean, he's on pace to have over 60 touchdowns this year. But that defense, especially, whatever's going on with Jamal Adams, that pushed him out of the game. If he has to miss some time, that defense without him looked pretty suspect. So it's going to be a pretty major key to get him back and for him to be healthy for them moving forward. But they look like a powerhouse, and Cowboys. I mean, they're 1 horrible special teams play away from being 0-3 right now. And they're starting really slow in games. You know, they kind of kept up with Seattle in this one. They looked a little better, especially after Jamal Adams went out there able to move the ball better. But the Cowboys, I mean, it just doesn't look anything like I thought it would look. I thought they'd be rolling on offense, kind of looking like the Packers, but they look pretty disappointing. And as you said, lucky that their division is probably the worst we've seen in years because they might be the next team to finish 7-9 and make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's probably a very probable prediction. Okay, so next game, Green Bay at New Orleans. I didn't. We talked about this. This to me was a coin toss. I gave it to the home team with New Orleans. I didn't expect New Orleans to lose another game like they did. And again, I'm going to go with piggyback off what I said last week. Zach, you the man. I mean, you called Green Bay 3 weeks ago, and we argued about it, but they looked pretty damn good last night.
Yeah, they. I mean, it was a really good game to watch. New Orleans. I'm surprised they're 1-2 because they're a great team, and you guys have them winning the Super Bowl this year, which I think they'll bounce back. It's still really early. They've had a tough schedule so far, but the difference, it was tied 27-27 in the fourth quarter. Taysom Hill fumbled, and that was a game changer in that game. Uh, both Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees had almost identical numbers. Aaron Rodgers had 283 passing yards. Drew Brees had 288. Both had 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So the main difference was that turnover, which, as we'll talk about the rest of this show, turnovers have been a big thing in the outcome of games. But Aaron Rodgers is playing with the chip on his shoulder, man. He's top 5 in the league in passing yards and top 3 in touchdowns since they drafted Jordan Love. He's gone crazy. He's making people like Alan Lazard, who's a undrafted second-year player, a superstar on the field.
Yeah, he really did. You know, and Marshawn Lattimore was able to lock down Valdez Scantling, but it didn't even matter. You know, when you have a running back like Aaron Jones and you can just give that thing to him, seems like every game that dude's running off a 40 or 50-yard run. And he's got so much talent. And then they have 2 usable running backs behind him. You know, this team that we thought couldn't get a whole lot of offense going coming into the season because they didn't have any more wide receivers and whatever. They just put up 37 on one of the best defenses in the league without their best wide receiver. So going forward, this is going to be a team that, you know, they still have issues on that defense they need to fix. It looks like that's just going to be a thing for them. They're going to have to outscore people like Peyton Manning had to back in the day. But Aaron looks like old MVP, Super Bowl MVP Aaron Rodgers. So they look good going forward. I think the Saints are going to bounce back when they get Michael Thomas back. You know, when you use a running back as your number one receiver, it's just going to be a little harder to win games. So they'll be all right going forward, 1-2 right now. Like Zach said, tough schedule, but this was a really fun game to watch.
Yeah, and I certainly didn't expect the Saints to go 0-2, which is not only were they at home, but I expected Breeze and Peyton, Sean Payton, to overcome the adversity from the previous week. And I think them losing 2 in a row is a huge, huge deal. 2 things. One, I think that's going to help them calibrate in the future. I think it's going to be good for them. 2, it goes back to how powerful the Packers are, because I know that the Saints prepared. I know that they were mentally ready. I know they had everything in place that they needed in place. And the Packers were just too much. And I'm actually going to agree with you by disagreeing with you, Hefe. Rodgers doesn't look like the old MVP. Rodgers looks like he's the best quarterback in the NFL to ever play. Last night, Rodgers knew exactly what he wanted to do and when he wanted to do it, how he wanted to do it, and he did it effortlessly. He didn't even look like he broke a sweat. That is extremely dangerous. That is Peyton Manning territory. We're moving down that's a confidence that exudes. It comes rarely with guys like with Manning and Brady, and it sets them completely apart. And I feel like Aaron Rodgers has moved into new territory, and they may, in my opinion, they may be moving into the team to beat in the NFC. I really do.
Which I've said since the division debate.
Yeah, well, I've got nothing on the division because I chose the Vikings, so we'll roll right over that one. All right, so the Rams at Buffalo, man, what a game! And we knew it all would be. It sure didn't disappoint. You know, the Rams got down. They made a comeback. There could be something said about the Bills blowing the lead, but the Bills found a way to win in the end and remain undefeated. That's no small task in itself. But this game couldn't come down without a controversy, could it, Hefe?
You're talking about the interception that should have never been an interception that turned the whole game around. And,
Yeah.
Yep, I remember when I put that post on Facebook and you had asked what happened. I knew as soon as they let the Rams get that ball that was going to be something weird and it was going to have a huge impact on it. But this was my favorite game of the week. I watched basically this whole game. And it was a tale of two halves, right? Buffalo went into halftime 28-3 lead. They looked unstoppable. The Rams looked like a pretender. And then in the second half, like we were just talking about, that interception was pretty bogus, and that kind of turned things around. But even still, that's just one turnover. You were up 25 points, and the Rams came back and made this game. Josh Allen made a couple mistakes that we had seen him make in the past. He made some in the second half, and that kind of allowed the Rams to get back in the game too. But ultimately, Josh Allen made the plays he needed to at the end of the game. And what we're not used to seeing him do is put a game away. And he put this one away. He had a huge game again. And if it wasn't for Russell Wilson just absolutely annihilating teams right now, Josh Allen would be the front runner and it wouldn't even be close.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I don't really have much to say. I'll just throw out some stats on Josh Allen from Sunday's game. He had 311 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's number 2 in the league in passing yards and touchdowns. So, like we said, if Russell Wilson wasn't balling out the way he is, Josh Allen would be leading the MVP race right now.
Yeah, so the Allen's now had 3 straight games with 300 plus yards, which is pretty remarkable. So I won't beat a dead horse. You guys said everything needed to be said there. I would like to point out the Bills are 3-0, and they are on the road the next 2 weeks at Las Vegas and then at Tennessee, and we'll be closely watching both of those games for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, next up, the Bears and the Falcons. The Bears. Keeping up with the weirdest year ever, the Bears are 3-0, sitting at the top of the NFC North. I'm now going to join in with Hefe's calling for firing Dan Quinn right now. Another meltdown, a pathetic meltdown. I can't even imagine being a Falcons fan right now. I don't even know how you wear a jersey in public. You have to have an argument ready to defend your status as a fan. So, Quinn needs to go, but it has to be after Adam Gase. If I was Dan Quinn and I got fired before Adam Gase, I would be pissed. But it's coming. Quinn's appears to have lost control. I don't know that he can get it back. I don't know that it's going to come back. I don't know they can salvage this season and move forward. I think for him and for the organization, it's probably time to part ways. Another blown lead, 26-10 at the half, and poof, it's just gone.
Yeah, well, first I want to say that I went against Chicago again this week, and I lost. So I'll sign my L on that game pick. But I did say when we were doing the picks that if Julio Jones was healthy, Atlanta would win, and he was inactive with the hamstring injury. So got a little bit of an asterisk there on that one. But Atlanta squandered another huge lead in the fourth quarter, which makes them the first team in NFL history to lose back-to-back games when they led by at least 15 points in the fourth quarter.
Oh, see, now they're breaking records.
Yeah, not the ones you want, that's for sure. But another big headline, I mean, I'm with you. Dan Quinn needs to go. That not only did he set this record, but he lost the Super Bowl the same exact way. So I think it's time for Atlanta to move on from Dan Quinn. But another big headline is Nick Foles came in, replaced Mitchell Trubisky, and led the comeback with 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. And he's already been named the starter for next week. So we'll see how that turns out against the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, well, that Colts defense has 3 interceptions in 2 straight games. I expect that to happen again. But, I mean, outside of the 2 touchdown difference, their stats in this game are almost identical. They were both just as ineffective as each other. But the thing you get with Nick Foles is the experience in decision making and seeing more NFL defenses. So it doesn't surprise me that he was able to come back against this Falcons team that just lets people have wins. I don't think going forward that it's going to be something that's going to be permanent. I think at some point Trubisky's going to come back in because Nick Foles is going to be Nick Foles and get replaced again at some point. But I don't know how the Bears have made it to this point, 3-0, but they're not making it to 4-0. I can promise you
that.
Yeah,
I hope not.
So, we talked about this quarterback controversy coming. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. This is a good situation to be in, to have two guys that can win you games. It's also simultaneously, paradoxically, the worst situation you can be in. You don't know who to go with. The locker room begins to split. One guy's going to help you win now. Foles has the experience. One guy is your future. You don't know if you're doing psychological damage to your young guy by pulling him out, putting the other guy in. This is not long term. This is not a good solution. And the reality is that even let's say they do go 4-0. Let's say they do end up 12-4, and you got a quarterback controversy, which is highly unlikely that's even going to happen with the situation. But at some point with a quarterback controversy, the wheels are going to come off. If there's no commitment here in the next few games to one quarterback and that quarterback excels, this will run its course very quickly.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see how you can make a change in the middle of a game and then later on make that change back to Trubisky. I don't see that working out well for the locker room, like you said. I don't see that working out well for the coaching staff or the management staff. It's a tough situation to be in, but I mean, you got to do what you got to do to win football games, and they made the change in the middle of the game, and it paid off for them. Now they're 3-0.
Okay. Houston Texans at Pittsburgh. The Texans, I want to say the Texans are in a lot of trouble. I'm going to be kind and say they may be in a lot of trouble. I'm really not surprised. I called this in week one. I think all three of us talked about this before the season even started. But in week one, I said that they would start 0-3 and possibly 0-4. So they have the Vikings coming up this weekend. And the Vikings took the Titans to the brink today, which causes other problems because the Colts manhandled the Vikings last week. So I don't know. So with the Texans and the Vikings, we're going to see this coming week which teams should be 0-3 and which teams should not be 0-3. It's a good thing that the Texans are at home, or Bob may be joining Quinn Gase and the Chargers team doctor on that extended off-season fishing trip that we've been talking about. We'll see.
Yeah, to jump in with the game, the Texans were up 21-17 at halftime, and then the Steelers just completely shut them out in the second half. David Johnson had another poor performance. He had 13 carries, only 23 yards. So that trade that Bill O'Brien made with DeAndre Hopkins just not panning out so far. So yeah, like you said, they play the Vikings next week, and then they got the 1-2 Jaguars after that. Personally, I think they should have already fired him. But if they lose one of those games, is it time to move on?
I mean, it was probably time to move on like 2 years ago.
True that. Should have never made the hire in the first place.
I think the Texans fans probably agree with you at this point.
Yeah. I mean, he's every year letting people go in free agency, and obviously the D-Hop thing is a cherry on top of everything that he's done. But it just doesn't look good. Like Zach said, they went in to the half with the lead. Nobody expected them to be in this game. They go into the half with the lead, and Bill O'Brien gets out coached. I think they only had like 60 yards of offense or something crazy like that in the second half. And the Texans are on a deep spiral downward. I don't even know if they can beat the Vikings at this point. Vikings almost beat the Titans, so who knows what's going on there. But the Steelers, they locked up when they had to lock up. They locked up, and that's why I think this team is going to be able to just keep rolling out wins because the defense is so strong. Same defense that somehow carried them to 8-8 last year. It's probably going to carry this team to somewhere between 10 and 13 wins, and they're rolling right now.
Yeah, the Steelers are 3-0 at top of the NFC North, doing what the Steelers do. I mean, they're grinding it out. They're getting it done. Love them or hate them, right? FA, they're getting the dubs. And I want to point out something about the Texans with they have the Vikings and then they have the Jags. And I pray to God it's the Colts and Titans Jags and not the Dolphins Jags.
Yeah, you would hope so. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the Titans and the Vikings. There's a lot of confusion in the AFC South right now, especially if you're in the AFC South fan battle group. There's a lot of people screaming and yelling about who's the best in there. So I can't tell if the Titans struggled again this week or if the Vikings are finally getting it together. The Titans are 3-0, but their 3 wins are by a combined 6 points against teams with a combined record of 1-8. That's not exactly balling out. Yesterday, Tannehill and Henry both had decent games. Henry had, I think, 119 yards rushing, but Cousins and Cook both had decent games as well. And the Titans gave up 181 yards to Cook. So I just pulling some stats down, some team stats. The Titans are 22nd in rush yards allowed. They're 20th in pass yards allowed, and they're 25th in sacks. And again, the 3 teams that they've beaten have a combined record 1-8. But I digress. Wins are wins. They're 3-0. They're sitting at the top of the AFC South. Unfortunately, I think their opening run is about to come to a sobering close. They have Pittsburgh this week, and then the Bills next week. Zimmer and the Vikings. I don't know. I pass.
Yeah, I just kind of echo what you said. I said in our preview pick'em show that if Derrick Henry had a big game, that Tennessee would pull it out, and that he did. 119 yards, 2 touchdowns. And like you said, they've won their 3 games by a combined 6 points. Their defense is struggling, and their future schedule, they got the Steelers, Buffalo after that, so they could drop to 3-2. Houston, you never know. It's a division game. They could lose that one, 3-3. Then they got Cincinnati, which should be a win. But then they have the 3-0 Bears, the Colts who are on the rise, Baltimore, and then the Colts again. So before they know it, they could be dropping a lot of games and moving down in the standings.
Yeah, so far it kind of seems like that's the way it's going to go. I know it could be a biased point of view because I'm a Colts fan, same division, whatever. But if you look at what the Vikings were able to do week 1, they were still able to put up like 34 points and do their thing week 1. Then they get shut down, but they still do their thing here against the Titans. Titans just seem like a team that is gonna end up 9-7. They went 9-7, 3 years in a row. And I think as their schedule continues to get harder, they got some easy games out of the way, just like the Colts got some easy games out of the way. But as it gets harder, they look like they're going to lose some of these close games. Like if this is a close game against the Packers or a close game against the Chiefs, they lose this game every time. With what we saw yesterday. So it's kind of concerning that they're not beating bad teams the way they should. But at the end of the day, a dub's a dub, and that defense is struggling. I don't know if they're going to be able to stop teams. So I'm kind of hesitant to say that Tennessee looks real good, even though I like Tannehill a lot. I like Derrick Henry a lot.
All right. So the Jets at the Colts. No surprises here. I want to be super happy with the dominating fashion that the Colts have won the past 2 weeks, but it is the Jets. Now, I mean, there's always that argument that the field's filled with professionals, and there's a very small margin between a good team and a bad team, that whole thing. But the Jets are terrible, just absolutely terrible. I saw someone say the Jets were the worst team in the league, and somebody said, hey, the Giants want to talk to you. Making a reference to the Giants may be the worst, but I think it's the Jets. Dude, I'm going to say it one more time. I mean, for the love of all things holy, Adam Gase needs to go. Why is he still here?
I don't know how much worse you can do before you make that change. They I don't know. I think Clemson can beat them. Play
Well,
Clemson. I see Clemson beating them.
the Jets ownership hasn't fired a coach in season since I believe 1963, somewhere there in the 60s.
Yeah.
So they're just not a team that does that for some reason.
Look, this offensive genius gave up 16 points, right? It means the Colts defense scored 16 points. It means the Jets offense was their offense was one half responsible for half of the total of the Colts points they put on the board. I mean, it's not just the Jets defense giving up points. The offense is giving up points too. The offense designed by an offensive genius. I don't get it. Hashtag fire Gates.
Right there with you.
They kind of came into this game, and the Jets are bad either way, but they came into this game without their top three receivers, so they definitely had no chance. But that's going to be the excuse for Adam Gase is that there are guys on defense that opted out, the receivers are all hurt, but if you look at what's happened with the Jets, I mean, Mike Greenberg laid it all out for us a couple of weeks ago, like we talked about. Like there's no reason he should still be coaching here, But at the same time, on the Colts side, where I said Tennessee's not beating bad teams the way they should, the Colts have played two bad teams in a row, three if you want to count Jacksonville, and they lost that game, But since then, two bad teams in a row, and they beat the shit out of them, and it wasn't even close. Convincing wins the way it should go. And it looks good. The defense is all over the place. They're forcing turnovers. There's some injuries there, but the guys are still getting it done. And I think they're averaging, given 250 yards up to teams, just over 250. So the defense is flying all over the place. The offense in this game didn't have to do much. There's not a whole lot of yards. I think they still had 383 yards and half the time of possession, and the defense, like you said, scored 16. So the offense literally didn't have to score if they didn't want to, but it looks good going forward. If they're going to keep beating bad teams like this, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, to kind of echo what you said, like we talked about when we covered the Colts back in the offseason, this defense looks amazing. They are number one in the league right now, giving up 225.3 yards per game, and they're the only team that's played 3 games that has given up 15 or less points per game. So our defense, absolutely phenomenal. They had 3 interceptions, 2 of which were ran back for touchdowns, like Brad said, and they had a safety on the day. But to kind of talk about the offense, after last week's game and during this week's game, I had posted on Facebook kind of messing with people because week 1 we saw the Rivers haters everywhere. Everybody was talking about how Phillip Rivers sucks. We need to bring back Jacoby Brissett. And so I've been kind of teasing them back and forth on Facebook. Phillip Rivers is not there to be an MVP caliber quarterback. He is there to do his job, to manage the clock, protect the ball, and make the occasional play. And he did that again for the second week in a row. He was 17 for 21, 217 yards and a touchdown. And then you couple that with the Colts rushers combining for 119 yards and a touchdown. Defense playing the way it is, it's a huge win for the Colts, 36-7.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. And we talked about Rivers too. We talked about that in the preseason, and we've talked about that every week. That he knows his clock is ticking, and he knows he's in a system that he doesn't need to come in here and be a gunslinger, and he has to tone that down. And we saw that without a preseason, he didn't have an opportunity to do that. Without the preseason, he picked up where he was last year, which was throwing interceptions all over the place. Now he's getting comfortable with his teammates. He's getting comfortable with what's happening. This system is perfect for Rivers, and he looks like he's really starting to settle in. And one thing he's going to do, all those things that you said, and the last thing is he's going to provide leadership, veteran leadership. That is only going to get better. So the offense, we're only seeing a glimpse of what they're going to become as we go on, which is what we talked about in the preseason. This is a legitimate AFC team here. There's a couple things I want to throw in here. I heard during the game yesterday that Reich had was talking. They interviewed Reich, and he was talking about Kobe Brissett, and they asked him about when he had the conversation with Brissett that he was bringing in Rivers, and that Reich had said that it was awkward, and I can't imagine having that conversation, right? So, for everything that I know about Brissett, I understand that he's an organization guy. He's a teammate's teammate. He wants to win. He wants to do whatever it takes. If that's hold a clipboard, and it certainly seems that that's exactly what's happened. It sounds like from this conversation, and Reich was telling me how awkward it was to have a conversation with him. And Reich said, allegedly in this interview, that he told Brissett that he was bringing in a future Hall of Famer who obviously has 16 years in the league and 38 kids. Oh, wait a minute, that's not relative. I don't know. Maybe Brissett maybe wants 38 kids. I don't know, but he's bringing in a guy with all this experience who understands the system, right? Because Reich and Rivers have that history of the system, and that it would be good for the team, and that it would be good for Brissett. Now, the words that be good for Brissett weren't the words they used, but it was implied. And it really got me to thinking about this. And they said that Brissett said he understood and he was in and that kind of thing. So, all right, here's my question. With that said, does Frank Reich still look at Jacoby Brissett as the future of this franchise?
I mean, you never know what's going to happen in the future with draft picks and who can fall into your lap. I think Jacoby Brissett being thrown in the way he did last year didn't help his stock any. Andrew Luck abruptly retired, and then next thing you know, Jacoby Brissett's like, "Oh, I got to lead this team." And with the high expectations that everybody had with last season, it just kind of didn't play out and make him look any better. But I think he's a good quarterback, and taking the time to play under Rivers and develop more and learn the system more, he may come in and just have to be another Rivers and just do the job, manage the clock, protect the ball, make the occasional play, because he's going to have all these playmakers right there with him. So it wouldn't surprise me if they are looking at him like the face of the franchise in the future.
Yeah, I just don't know if that's going to happen. It's tough to tell. They're paying him a bunch of money, but I like Jacob Eason, and I like him as the future. I think he's got the prototypical body. I think behind Jacoby and behind Philip Rivers and learning from Frank Reich, I think he has a chance to come in kind of like a Brett Favre and Rodgers situation. And once this system gets handed off to him, he'll be able to take it with all these pieces. Ballard's bringing all these young guys, and these guys can flourish together, and so that's kind of what I hope happens. Is what I think happens. I think that's why they drafted him. And what was it, the third round? I don't think you get a quarterback that early unless you're planning on him maybe being your franchise guy. So I think going forward, Jacoby's going to be either a free agent coming up or he's going to get traded. I think they like having him. He's like the best backup in the league, arguably. So it's nice to have him around in case something happens to Philip. But Philip hasn't been touched, I don't think, this year. So other than one sack, I think so. I think there's a chance Brissett is gone before the trade deadline.
Yeah, so all great points. I would like to say, throw in a couple other things here. The first one is going to be that Brissett is a great system quarterback. That's exactly what happened in New England. That's what we're talking about. Rivers has to do. He has to be a Tom Brady. He has to be able to just manage the system. Peyton Manning was the entire system. Tom Brady is a master at managing the system. I mean, Peyton Manning was right in the thick of things, telling everybody to go here, but it's micromanagement at its finest. Brady is just a, hey, guys, everybody knows what we got to do. Let's get it done. Rivers has walked in doing the same thing. Brissett played in that kind of a system. It's apparent that he's playing for that kind of a system here in Indianapolis. I think I agree with you that Brissett was kind of thrown into the fire, and there were a lot of expectations on there are a lot of expectations to win in Indianapolis, despite that we've had a few down years for different reasons. So this could go either way, really. I mean, Brissett could be better than we think he is, and I'm going to default to Frank Reich. As much as I like to think that we know what the hell we're talking about, I believe Frank Reich. And I think Colts fans really need to stop for a second. I said this before, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to emphasize it this time. And I'm going to bet everything on this statement. I believe Frank Reich will be the best coach in Colts history before this is over. I believe for the first time in a very, very, very long time, which could be all the way back to the March of Rhoda days back in the 70s. This may be the most solid all-around football coach we've ever had here. And if he says that Coach Jacoby Brissett can carry this team, I believe him. If he says Jacob Eason could carry this team, I believe him. If he goes and gets somebody else because that's the answer, I believe him until he proves otherwise. That's all I got to say about that. Agreed. Last thing I want to say, AFC South. All right. The Titans are at the top of AFC South 3-0. We've talked about that they're struggling a little bit. The Colts are 2-1. They lost to the Jags. They shouldn't have lost to the Jags. I'm not going to make excuses. Game 1 on the road, interdivision, a season without preseason is probably the last time I'll say that this whole year because I'm not going to make excuses. There are two things that are very apparent right now, and one is that the Colts are getting better. The second is the Titans are barely getting by, and that's going to shake out in the next couple of weeks. Colts are going to win this division. Okay, Dolphins and Jags. What I want to say is finally, the Dolphins lived up to my hype, but in reality, the Jags just looked bad. To quote Denny Green, they are who we thought they were. I gave them props, and I still will. They played really hard the first 2 weeks against Indy and Tennessee, interdivision games. And I think that effort, good things happen when you work hard. But this is the NFL, and eventually working hard doesn't cut it anymore. It only gets you so far. We saw that happen the other night. Fitzpatrick looked amazing, as Fitzpatrick will do every once in a while. You can't even say every other game because he'll play 3 games like an MVP and then 6 games like crap and then play 2 games like an MVP and then 1 game. You just don't ever know who's going to show up with him. But, man, when he looks good, he looks as good as there's ever been. He was certainly that way the other night. I'm happy to see Flores finally get a win because I think there's more coming their way, though I don't really expect them to get another one this week. And the Jags just expect more of the same, I think.
Yeah, the real Jacksonville and the real Miami finally showed up. Jacksonville looked horrible. Miami played very well. Although Jacksonville had more yards and more plays than the Dolphins, Miami had almost 9 more minutes of possession, and they had 2 takeaways. So that right there is how you win football games, and they got it done, 31-13.
Yeah, it just seems pretty apparent that when Minshew tries to push the ball downfield, he's going to make more mistakes than not. I don't know if that's decision making or if he doesn't have the arm strength to get it there quicker and put it in the right spot. But when it comes time for him to have to make plays, he's thrown a couple interceptions over the last 2 games. So I think going forward, the real Jags are coming out. Teams are seeing the guys that are on this team. They're seeing tape of them, and they're seeing what this Jay Gruden offense is going to look like. So I think they're going to have a lot more weeks that look like this going forward. And the Dolphins didn't even have Byron Jones in this game, so I think they're only going to look better going forward. But good game for the Dolphins. Glad to see them get a win.
Yeah, so in the end, this is what I wanted. I mean, finally, Fitz did his magic. The Fish finally get a win. The Jags are back below 500, and all is right again in the state of Florida. All right, Lions at the Cardinals. Man, we should have had Brian on today.
I don't know if we could deal with that.
Yeah, he would have talked all kinds of trash, but I don't care. The guy, this is his moment. This is his shine. He deserves this. For those of you who don't know, we've had Brian on the show before. Brian is loyal. He's a loyal Lions fan, of the loyalist Lions fans through and through. And yesterday, he got his due. He got his bragging rights. In my opinion, this is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, upset of the week. Though I'm sure Brian would disagree with that.
Yeah.
He probably is the only person that picked them yesterday. Patricia gets a win. good for him. I'm still prolonging the inevitable. I think Patricia's gone at the end of the season, but the Cardinals go in. They go into the compound on Tuesday, shaking their head, wondering what the hell just happened. Any given Sunday, I guess.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say. The Lions snapped their 11-game losing streak, so good for them. Hats off. But the difference in this game was Kyler Murray's 3 interceptions. If he played a little bit better, then Cardinals would have won this one easily. But hats off to the Lions for getting the win.
Yeah, no doubt. And I thought that they would be more competitive with Kenny Galladay, but I didn't think they'd have enough juice to win, and they were able to get it done. Like Zach said, three interceptions is really just going to put your team in a bad spot, no matter how good the rest of the team is and how that goes. But the Lions usually do what the Falcons have been doing. The Lions usually give games up at the end, and they were able to get it done. Matt Stafford looked good in this one. The offense did not look dysfunctional finally, so hopefully they can stay healthy and keep this rolling.
Yeah, and for everything, everything we laugh and we joke about and this kind of thing, you want these guys to be successful, unless their name's Pete Carroll. And sorry, I had to take another jab there. I would like this to be a turning point, and I would be happy in 3 weeks for the Lions to have pulled off another 3 victories in a row and be having a different conversation about the Lions. I'm not confident it's going to happen, but I'd like it if Patricia could salvage his job and turn something around and give Detroit fans something to be happy about.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see another one of Bill Belichick's disciples go out and do something well. We know Brian Flores is going to be successful at some point, once Tua is the starter of that team. But it'd be cool to see more of his disciples do well.
Yeah, and Vrabel in Tennessee. As much as that hurts being a Colts fan, that which is a little off task here, but it sucks rooting for a team in your own division, and I like Vrabel and I like Tannehill, and it's that love-hate thing. I hate it. They're 3-0, but I'm happy for both of them.
Yep, I feel the same way.
Yeah. Okay. Raiders and Patriots. Hefe, you want to sit this one out, or do you need some time here?
Yeah, this one was tough to watch, man. Exactly what you thought the Raiders would do, they weren't able to get done in this one.
No, as good as they looked against the Saints, they sure didn't bring that with them, did they?
No, and you would have thought that, the Patriots had a little trouble stopping the run the first 2 weeks, so I thought Josh Jacobs was going to have a really good game in this one, but they did a really good job, the Patriots did, of taking away Darren Waller. I don't even know if he got a catch. If he did, it was on 1 or 2, quiet all game long. And Josh Jacobs, they were able to bottle him up, and so the offense wasn't able to really be efficient. They put some points on the board late to make it not look so bad, but unfortunately, this game really wasn't even that close.
Yeah, I'm right there with Jeff. I picked the Raiders to win. I should have known better, but it is what it is. The Raiders did a pretty good job shutting down Cam Newton. He only had 162 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, only 27 rushing yards. But the Patriots rushers finally showed up. Sonny Michel had 117 yards. Rex Burkhead had 2 touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown. And New England was +2 in turnovers and had 9 more minutes of possession. Plus, they were at home. So, easy win for the Patriots. I didn't even see it coming.
Yeah, and I'd like to say they did a good job of, and we talked about this before too, they did a good job of stopping Cam. But with guys like Cam and your big stars, when you put so much energy into stopping one of them, it frees someone else up. And we saw that, I think, in this game. But, I honestly think this is like the curse of the Tuck rule here. This is, I think this is like the anniversary or I don't know. Jeff, don't they play in every 8 years? Don't they play? The Raiders go to Foxborough.
Yeah, every 8 years.
I thought I heard some kind of weird reference about the Tuck rule. But look, this is where the Tuck rule happened. This is the curse of the Tuck rule. Chucky has PTSD. Probably flashbacks when he walks in. And if you know what, if I was Beelzebub, I would have put the highlights from the 2003 FC Championship game on the big screen and let it loop for 24 hours before the kickoff and let Chucky see that the whole time. get in his head, and he probably did, or he sent it to his email or something. Or Beelzebub conjured his his demons or whatever he does, or shut off the headsets or whatever he does. But no, I think he didn't have to. It's hard to win at Foxborough. It's hard to beat probably the best coach in the history of the NFL. Beelzebub gets another win, and both teams move to 2-1. I guess we got to get this one out of the way. The Bengals at the Eagles. Man, what a shit show. Tie. Isn't that exciting? It's bad enough no one wanted to watch this game. It's a good thing probably for them that nobody's got anybody going to the game. Somebody noticed that how few people went to this game because it was going to be a disaster. And then what's it do? It ends up in a tie. Wentz struggled. Burrows had a good game again. I think it was 31-44 for 312 yards. Not bad for a rookie, but they didn't win. I guess give the kid a chance, maybe pull out some wins. Both teams fall to a dismal 0-2-1, which is even worse. I mean, at least the Texans can be like, hey, we're on a solid losing streak. Neither of these teams can even say that. But the good thing is the Eagles avoided starting 0-3 for the first time since 1999. So there you go.
Yeah, true. Burrow had another good game, like you said. Yeah, threw up 2 touchdowns, but he needs protection. They had 8 sacks on Burrow. So going forward, if the Bengals want to have a good team and want a good, healthy quarterback, take a play out of the Colts playbook, get you an offensive line, protect the man so he doesn't get hurt and retire like Andrew Luck did. But with that said, what has happened to Philadelphia? Carson Wentz, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He's tied with Kirk Cousins for the most interceptions in the league now. I think he has 6. And they're now 0-2-1, bottom of the division. I had them making the playoffs this year. I don't know what's going on in Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, they have so many injuries, and I say it every week, but I mean, they're playing with a bunch of second stringers. They might as well have done what Jacksonville did and just released everybody. They're kind of in the same situation, but Carson Wentz isn't playing like Carson Wentz used to play. And I don't know if that's completely on the offensive line and not having his weapons. There was a stat that I think he's thrown 15 off-target passes when having a clean pocket or no pressure. So some of what's going on is definitely on him. But the team around him is not good. They're not performing well. And the Bengals at least take a small step up here with Joe Burrow. It's not a win, but they got closer, and he's not turning the ball over. So that's good. As bad as that offensive line is, it tells me that he's not making ill-advised throws. He's taking the sacks, but at least he's not doing what we saw Josh Allen do even just this past Sunday. Throw the ball up when you're getting sacked. It's good not to see a rookie do that and make stupid plays. So there's definitely room to improve, but they look good going forward. If they can get the offensive line situations figured out. Like Zach said, they've been horrible. I don't know if their offensive line is worse, or the Giants' offensive line is worse, but it looks bad right now. They're going to have to find a way to protect the rookie.
So, Zach, I have an answer for you.
You have an answer?
I have an answer for you. You asked what's happened to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, they lost Frank Reich?
They lost Frank Reich.
I knew you were thinking about that. I was thinking about that. I was going to ask a question. Doug Peterson's not the coach they thought he was.
No, and Frank Reich is.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm telling you, Indianapolis fans better listen. This guy is the real deal, and he brought that Super Bowl mentality. He learned it in Buffalo way back when. He brought it through Philadelphia, and he's brought it to Indianapolis. He's the real deal, and Eagles fans know it right now.
Very true.
We should set up some kind of a program called Dial an Eagles Fan, and we let the Colts fans call the Eagles fans and let them sell them on Reich and what he's doing there, right?
Oh, that could get ugly.
Yeah, I don't think the Eagles fans would be
No, not at all.
Okay, man, I was way off here. Way off. 49ers to Giants. We talked about the possibility that the 49ers coming all the way across the country, coming into New York, all banged up and battered, all tattered and torn, limping into New York, and having to and I think we all said that they would win, but we thought that that there was a possibility they could reasonably have a close game. No, what an ass whipping, right? The 49ers showed, despite all the crap, and I hope Adam Gase is paying attention and Jets fans are paying attention. The 49ers aren't making excuses for not having players. 49ers got in their bus, went all the way across the country, and they kicked the Giants' ass. Despite they showed they belong in the NFC West, which is maybe the best division in the entire league this year. All four teams in the NFC West could make the playoffs this year, and they didn't piss around, and they absolutely manhandled the Giants. Other grown professional athlete, grown ass men, and they embarrassed them.
Yeah, they did. The Niners had 189 more yards on offense, ran 24 more plays, plus 3 in turnovers, and had almost 20 minutes more possession time. I don't see how you can do any better than that.
Yeah, that's pretty unreal stat. I mean, wow. So what's that? 40 to 20 on possession time?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I mean, that's just outrageous. And you got to think with what's going on with the Falcons and Dan Quinn. Kyle Shanahan used to get a lot of flack because they said, "Oh, he got conservative in the Super Bowl," and they lost that game because of his play calling. Well, apparently it's because Dan Quinn doesn't know how to adjust his defense in the second half, right? So Kyle Shanahan, with what he's doing with so many backups, third and fourth, I think their third and fourth string running backs both had a touchdown in this game. So with what he's working with to still be this competitive, and I thought they would win this game, but it'd be a low scoring affair because there's so many pieces missing for the Niners. But this is a good team that beat a bad team, and they did it convincingly. Like they didn't miss a beat, And I mean, when they get their starters back, or at least the ones that aren't out for the season, they're going to be a problem. If they can somehow win every game and then get Kittle back and Richard Sherman back and get all the running backs back here in 3-4 weeks, this is going to be a dangerous team moving forward.
Yeah, and what a serendipitous situation if they do bang out a winning record and then get everybody back and healthy and refreshed from having half the season off, and then blast out the last quarter of the games and run through the playoffs. It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's exciting. I didn't know how to when I was going through my power rankings, I didn't know how to rank the Cardinals and the Niners because the Niners have so many people missing, but they look good, and the Cardinals, they just look good but had kind of a bad day. So, it's a toss-up in that division. A lot of good teams there.
Look, I'm going to make a bold prediction. Adam Gase gets fired and gets hired by the Giants.
Whoa.
Okay. All right. It'd probably go the other way around because the Jets aren't real good at making management decisions. So not that the Giants at least have had a Super Bowl in the last 50 years or whatever. Anyway, let's move on. Washington football team and the Browns. You got to give it to the Browns. They tried real hard to screw this one up, but in the end, they were able to not let that happen and make it count. In all fairness, they are currently tied for second place at the top of the NFC North with the Ravens. The Ravens are 2-0, and they play the Chiefs tonight. For us, it'll be last night for the listener. So even if the Ravens win, the Browns are still second. The Ravens lose, they're tied with the Browns for second. It's a win-win for the Browns.
Yeah, good for them. It's the first time in 6 years they've had a winning record. So hats off to them for getting it. Despite the loss, Washington's tied for first place in their division as well. So,
real.
Yeah, this game, Washington had 5 turnovers. You can't win a game in the National Football League having 5 turnovers. So
that's really what it boils down to for me. The Browns did what we expected them to. They came out, they ran the ball again. Nick Chubb, 19 carries for 108 and 2 touchdowns. Kareem Hunt tacked on another 46 rushing yards. Just like I said last week, they're taking the ball out of Baker's hand, which is the move. He only threw the ball 23 times. He only had 156 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns and he didn't turn the ball over. So if you're doing that, their defense, they got to get some guys healthy, and they're going to have to get better as this season goes. But over the last 2 weeks, they've looked good.
All right, guys, I've got a new T-shirt idea for the Horsemen. Right, so yeah, so it's a maroon T-shirt with big yellow letters, and it's got a big capital T in the middle, and then it's got a capital W on the left side, and then a capital F on the right side for Washington football, the Washington football team, and it says WTF, and then we just put Washington underneath, and we put the Horsemen on the back. What do you think?
Hey, let's do it. I like it. I'd rock it.
Okay, so next up, the Panthers at the Chargers. Now, this isn't as big of a loss or big a deal as an upset as the Lions at the Cardinals, unless you're Brian and you think that this is probably the biggest upset of the week, but it's close. So, Bridgewater had a good game. Bear, did we pronounce it Bear? Is it Bear or Herbert or
Air Bear?
Huh?
Air Bear?
Air Bear?
Yep.
It's really Air Bear.
Air Bear.
No, that's his nickname.
Yeah, nickname, yeah.
So how do you pronounce his last name?
Oh, Herbert.
It is Herbert.
Yeah.
The H is not silent.
I was going to say, is it Herbert or Herbert? Pam?
He had an even better game. But in the end, putting it in the end zone. See what I did there? In the end, putting.
Yeah, Bridgewater did his job, protected the ball well. He's 22 for 28, 235 yards and a touchdown. Put him in position to hit 5 field goals in the game. Wish he could punch it in, get some more, but with Chris McCaffrey out, I could see how that's going to be a little bit of an issue. But the difference was that the Chargers had 4 turnovers, 3 lost fumbles, and an interception. Unfortunately, I was pretty disappointed in the Chargers. They looked great against the Chiefs, and then I picked them to win this week, and they lost. So, sign my L on that one.
Yeah, like Zach said, turnovers, when you're turning the ball over that many times, it's just going to be hard to win games. And they turn the ball over that much and only lose this game by 5 points. Justin Herbert throws the ball 49 times and only has 1 interception. Wasn't as good as last week, but it's a learning experience here. I don't think anybody expected him to really come out and go crazy in this one. Going forward, I think there's a lot of potential there still. It still sounds like they want to bring Tyrod back in whenever his lung is healed and whatnot. So I don't know if he keeps having 300-yard games and they can find ways to win. I think you got to kind of roll with him. But there's an injury to kind of monitor if you're maybe a Chargers fan. You're looking at Chris Harris Jr., one of the best corner slot guys in the league over the last decade, and him being out, that defense is still pretty nasty. But it looked like he may have popped his Achilles. I was listening to another game while I was watching that, so I didn't hear an update on that. But it looked like he may have gone down maybe for the season. So that could be game changing for the defense. Just something to watch.
Yeah, and I'd like to just reiterate, what you both said. Herbert. Anyway, he is something to watch, and I don't think Tyrod Taylor's coming back.
No, I definitely think you need
another medical accident.
Yeah. Oops.
Again, quarterback controversy, and it's really not a controversy the way this kid's playing. So let's be smart about this. Anyway, let's move on to the Bucs and the Broncos. There's not a whole lot to say here, other than the Titans barely beat the Broncos, and the Bucs made them look stupid. So you can figure out where the Titans fall into that category. Kind of same thing with the Vikings and the Colts, but we've already beat that horse. So Bucks take another step towards proving us all right. They're a contender that, the Bucks cruised to victory. They moved to 2-1. Easily could have been 3-0. That Saints game in that division, it's going to be a tough division. And the Broncos fall to a miserable 0-3.
Yeah, Tom Brady's firing on all cylinders. He had 297 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he had 8 different receivers that had at least 2 receptions. So he's spreading the ball around, getting into his weapons. They look good, and I think they're going to continue to do very well for the rest of the season.
I thought they looked pretty good too. This game seemed more like a preseason game after like the first quarter and a half. Brady, for them being up and comfortable in this game, Brady still threw the ball 38 times. So it felt like I said, a preseason game in the way that they wanted to have Brady get more in sync with these receivers. That playbook, there's a lot that goes into it, is what we've always heard. So assuming that's true, I think that, this was a game where they really get the offensive sync. He's using Mike Evans at the goal line. I'm pretty sure this is now makes 3 touchdown catches for him from the 1-yard line. So, if you don't see Mike Evans all game, if they get down inside the 5-yard line, Mike Evans is going to be there all year, which is smart. It's like 6'6". Why not go to him? But they're in sync right now, and the Broncos have one of the worst, if not the worst, offensive line in the league. They replaced Jeff Driscoll in this one, and it's all bad for the Broncos right now.
Yep. Okay. So that wraps up the recap. Looks like things are starting to fall in place for what we thought would happen in the preseason predictions. Even though these first 3 weeks have been a preseason in and of itself, crazy things have happened. I think it's finally looking like it's going to start shaking out a little bit. We'd like to ask you. So we're increasing following. We're getting a following. We're starting to get messages. We're starting to get feedback. We really appreciate the following we have. We'd like to ask you if you'd help us. We want you to help us reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and help us do that. You have a chance of winning an authentic NFL jersey from the NFL shop on us. If you're watching this, hit the subscribe button, then that bell icon so you never miss an episode, or so you don't miss a chance of the jersey giveaway. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, head on over to YouTube and help us out picking up our subscribers. And be sure to tell all your friends. We certainly appreciate the support. It's not too late to go head-to-head against us in the weekly pick 'em battle. Hop on our Facebook, Twitter page at Horsemen Sports, where you can find the link to join our free Pigskin Pick'em League. Winner gets a prize, and we'll announce the weekly winners and each week, and maybe get on air with us, and you come and represent your team, unless you're a Seahawks fan or Cowboys fan, and then we will pick an alternate for you. I'm just kidding. For all you fantasy fanatics out there, I bow out of this one. You don't want to hear me talk about fantasy. I haven't done it for a while. I need to get back up to speed. But you will want to listen to Zach and Hefe. They'll be giving you the advantage in your league with the latest episode of Fantasy Central, dropping tonight, where they'll cover the top Week 4 waiver wire picks, must-starts, and players to avoid this coming week. And, of course, we will see you again on Thursday for our Week 4 picks and our preview show. Thanks.
See ya.
See ya.